Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue. We are, as always, talking wrestling today, and the focus is very much going to be on SummerSlam. SummerSlam was this weekend. Plenty of news came out of it as regards injuries, championships, changing hands, and of course, big returns. Big returns from supposed injuries and big returns from the overall exodus, plus plenty more. There's about 15 different headlines I'm going to be going through, but I'm going to start with our top piece of news, so be sure to hit like as we get into this, because we're going to start with the insanity that is everything going in around Brock Lesnar. So, Brock Lesnar... Oh, there's always one. Here we go. Now, we have a troll. Everyone say hi to the troll, and then say bye to the troll. There's always one waiting to say stuff like this. The information that I gave was the information at the time, and I haven't reported on that for about 6 months. In fact, during the match last night, I made several references to Brock Lesnar, so don't be talking about things you know nothing about if you weren't here for the updates. Goodbye. So, hi troll, and bye troll. Already 60 people here. Remember to hit that thumbs up as well, and that will keep the show going. Right, so Brock Lesnar. Here are all the details that I have as I have them. Brock Lesnar's return was not an immediate thing. It is not based on WWE legal covering anything. Put simply, Brock Lesnar at no point has actually been up against any actual criminal charges. The name Brock Lesnar was brought up by the Wall Street Journal. No, wasn't it? Was it the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times? One of them. Was brought up by the reporting site rather than actually named in the affidavit against the WWE and Brock Lesnar. Lesnar himself was under no accusations, and the WWE essentially stated to him, Nick Khan in particular, we're going to sit you at home, your contract is going to run out, and Brock Lesnar was absolutely fine with that. As things moved on, things began to change. We have another troll. Literally, while I'm explaining what is happening, you clearly have not been paying attention. Bless. Everyone say hi to the troll, and then say bye to the troll. Like, New York Times, thank you, Declan. How sad do you have to be that your entire purpose in life is to pop up in people's chat and basically just prove that you're not here often enough to know what you're talking about? Anyway, Brock Lesnar over the last few weeks has shown an interest in returning, but it's not just him that is making this happen. The original question was posed by John Cena in the build-up to WrestleMania when he was giving his list to the WWE of the people that he wanted to work with. Brock Lesnar's name was there. At the time, he was told this is unlikely, based on current level of accusations, based on what's going on with the New York Times and the reporting and everything going on with Vince McMahon. However, John Cena was not the only person encouraging the WWE to bring Brock Lesnar back. There are a number of others who were interested in working with him, for example, Gunther. Upon working with Goldberg in particular, Gunther vocalized once again that he really wanted to work with Brock Lesnar. This is not a new contract for Brock. This is simply him returning and continuing. Michael, there was an intention for Janelle Grant to amend the complaint to add Brock, but that has been held up in litigation pretty much the entire time so far, and doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon. This essentially means that Brock Lesnar has come back for the last year of his contract. The contract did maintain, and in fact, for pretty much since he came back in 2012, 2014, his contracts have been SummerSlam to SummerSlam. Not WrestleMania. Always he would sign a new deal at SummerSlam, stay for a couple of years, and then pop back up at SummerSlam for a new 2-year deal. This is not a new deal. This is not a new offer. This is simply the continuation of the contract that he had. John Cena made the request. It was considered by Triple H. When it got to the desk of Nick Khan, that is the moment at which it started to be considered more seriously. The intention always seemed to be for Cena to work a few matches as a face, but the majority of his time as a heel. Now at this point, Brock's return means that he has that option. It is not just John Cena that is likely to face Brock during this particular run, which is expected to last about a year. He's returning as a heel, and there are suggestions that he will face off against Gunther, as I've mentioned previously, people such as Damian Priest, and there's a push as well to work with Jacob Fatu. Officially, at this point in time, the WWE, who are under accusations themselves, consider Brock Lesnar to have no active accusations against him, and as such, legally, there is nothing preventing them from working with him. I'm also told that there have been conversations between Brock Lesnar and Vince McMahon, encouraging Brock to return, even though he agreed with the WWE and Triple H when the allegations first became public, that he probably should keep his distance. So that's where we are. Brock Lesnar has returned. The conversation started because John Cena wanted to wrestle him during his final days as a wrestler. Nick Khan signed off on it, even though Triple H wasn't necessarily that invested. Vince McMahon has been having conversations with Brock Lesnar to convince him that it's worth returning. He's returning as a heel, and he has plenty of people potentially to face, such as Damian Priest, Gunther, and Jacob Fatu, even though he will, of course, be starting with John Cena. It may well be that that's where we head in Paris, because John Cena doesn't have that many dates left, and Brock Lesnar makes sense for the next big one. Absolutely correct. I did, Sammy. I reported basically when this first came out that the WWE were absolutely fine not including Brock Lesnar, were not interested in bringing him back. I've also just spent about 7 minutes detailing what has changed, who changed it, and how we got to this point. For those who were watching the watch party last night, you will notice several references that were made. One of the big ones is that in the match, there was a reference to a match between John Cena and Brock Lesnar when Lesnar first returned. Cena laid out on the larger part of the steel steps in the middle of the ring. I referenced it at the time. For those of you who were watching, you will note that there are several things I said during that particular live show that may have been worth your attention. So, that is our first piece of news, but we have plenty more to share. At the moment, Mr. X, it looks like Lesnar will be on SmackDown. We are going to be talking about the pivot between heel and face for John Cena. We're going to be talking about the potential for a Cody Rhodes heel turn. We're going to be talking about Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. We're going to be talking about the Seth Rollins scandal. We're going to be talking the reception to Charlotte Flair and plans for Alexa Bliss and the Wyatt Six. We're going to be talking Karrion Kross. We're going to be talking Jade Cargill and Tiffany Stratton. We're going to be talking WWE reception to Jelly Roll. We're going to be talking about the overall stacking on one side and the other of the 2 nights of SummerSlam, particularly involving the best match I feel of the year so far. We're going to be talking Naomi. Jesus Christ, Sammy, I literally just explained this to you. How is it possible that you cannot listen to a single word and yet you're here saying, hey, you said this word? The SmackDown Tag Division and TLC will be discussed. We're going to be talking Bayley's involvement with Lyra and Becky. We're going to be talking Solo and Fatu being cut for time. And we're going to be talking a few niggling injuries in the world of Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles. Of course, in addition to that, I'll be reading as many of your comments as I can. So this will likely be quite a while now. Yeah, Joey, it seems like it's probably the exact same person again. It's honestly quite embarrassing for them because this is so important to you and it makes so little difference to me. Everyone say hi, troll and bye, troll. So I will be reading as many of your comments as I can while also sharing as much news as I can. This one is going to be hectic. This one is going to be heavy, and this one is going to have to be quite fast-paced. Mr. X Del Rio at the moment is not something in the WWE plans. Liam says, per Fightful Select, Brock Lesnar's final match likely to be held in SummerSlam 2026 in his hometown of Minneapolis, Minnesota. As I mentioned there, Brock's contracts are always SummerSlam to SummerSlam. This is the final year of it, so that's where that came from. Yes, Joey, John Cena did request to work with Brock. Liam says WWE single-handedly just told every female employee and fan you are not safe. Silence is compliance. This needs to be criticised at every opportunity, every promo, every media appearance. Beatrice just says, Ayo, chat rate. Hello, Sledgehammer. Good to see you, mate. Bear with me 1 second, please, guys. I'm still not 100%. Liam says John Cena is currently advertised for 3 out of the 4 SmackDown episodes on the road to Clash in Paris, August 8th, August 22nd, and August 29th. Skim says, is Brock's return a litmus test on bringing Vince back on screen, especially in time for Cena? No, it is unrelated to Vince McMahon apart from the fact that they've been having conversations, though I will say I'm not going to rule out the possibility that they're intentionally opening some doors here. Liam says via Corey Hayes, Nikki Bella and Becky Lynch are expected to go into a feud with each other. That's been planned for a little while to attempt to capitalise on Happy Gilmore. The fact that scenes have been cut means that it doesn't quite make as much sense as it would have done. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Joey, as I have mentioned, Brock was never blacklisted. They just sent him home and said, you go quietly until your contract runs out. And then they saw an opportunity to make some more money, and Cena wanted it. Erin says, hope everyone has a good week, even though the weekend may not have been the best. Sean says, hello, Tom. Hello, Sean. Liam says, WWE is doing nothing to ensure those responsible are held accountable. This attempt to sweep misconduct under the rug will backfire. We look forward to the full set of facts. The investigation will need to continue. The entirety of the WWE are under investigation, though at this point in time, for the sake of clarity, Brock Lesnar is not under investigation. This is one of those moments where I am going to have to tread very carefully to make sure that I focus entirely on fact. Because, to be blunt, at this point in time, there is no active investigation into Brock Lesnar. There is an active investigation into the WWE and into Vince McMahon. Liam says, TKO has plans underway to introduce more 2-night pay-per-views in the future. Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble at the top of the list to turn to the 2-night format with Money in the Bank. Yeah, I've been reporting that one for a while as well. They are very interested in having a Royal Rumble for 2-night. Basically, they just want to make it so that there is always WWE on your screen. Mr. X said the WWE giving up on Jade Cargill's title win. It looks like there was no real intention to have Jade Cargill win a title. More on that later. KJ, I'd argue that I wasn't wrong. I gave you the right information at the time. And I'm giving you the information that has changed since. There we are. I'm not surprised by that, Roy. I'm not surprised. Hey, KJ. Good to see you, mate. Sean says, I don't trust Corey Hayes. I believe he just speculates. I'm not on Twitter enough to really be able to tell. When people just report on Twitter, it becomes very difficult to track. Paul says, Tom Hannifan and Matt Raywalt have officially signed new contracts with TNA. That's good news. I very much believe they are worth it. Just going to take a spray. Apologies, guys. Ooh. Still struggling a little bit. Ooh. Liam says, Seth Rollins told his daughter Rue that daddy's got to pretend boo-boo and to keep it on the low in the name of kayfabe. She then immediately told her preschool teacher all about it. That's funny. I enjoy that. Harris, Tama Tonga is currently injured and is expected back shortly. King Azza says, Brock Lesnar being at SummerSlam was a waste of time. The story will be told soon. Liam says, Triple H states John Cena essentially wanted Brock Lesnar during his retirement tour. One of the first things I said to him is, who do you want and how? And we're working through that. Thank you there, Liam, because that literally confirms everything I've been saying pretty much the entirety since John Cena announced that he would be retiring. So that's Triple H confirming my reporting again. Liam says, Roman Reigns is backstage at Raw tonight in Brooklyn via Fightful Select. CMAX says, hey Tom, just like WrestleMania, night 2 of SummerSlam was better than night 1. I wholeheartedly agree. Joey says, I hope this doesn't mean TKO is open to bringing Vince back. If he's cleared, they're definitely going to bring him back. Mr. X says, have WWE planned to use the Hardys at Raw or SmackDown? Not at this point in time, no. Joey, as I say, Brock Lesnar was technically never involved in the lawsuit. He was not named by the plaintiff on the affidavit. Marcel says, do you see it as a one-match deal or more matches? I see it as being several matches, 4 or 5, in a final year. Late Talk says, Adam Copeland needs to be an opponent for John Cena, but I know it won't happen. It will not be doing so, no. And Declan says, it makes me sick. Kelly says, hey Tom, how did you like SummerSlam? Did you think it was better than WrestleMania? Hard to say. I think Night 2 was brilliant. I think the main event of Night 1 was brilliant. I think there was a lot of copycat mechanics. Welcome Perish. Drive-by says, let's hit those likes, guys. We're at 43 likes at the moment, 87 people here. About half. If we're able to, please remember to hit that thumbs up. It does guarantee more people find this show, and that guarantees more growth to the channel. Bad says, now after a long time, Alexa and Charlotte got the tag titles, so what's next for them? We do have a report on that incoming. Hello, Amy. Welcome. Sean says, Alexa and Charlotte are set to appear on Raw tonight. Ray says, as John Cena turned babyface, we will be discussing that shortly. Michael says, there's this fake outrage online about it all. They'll all still be buying tickets, and if they boo, WWE will call it good heel heat. Here's the thing. Vince McMahon was at the height of his unpopularity. He was having this sort of thing reported and announced. There was talk of him being forced to leave the company. And he came down to the ring and the crowd sang along. Wrestling is typically Republican. And historically, when you look at who the Republicans elected, they're not going to believe that Vince has done anything wrong. In my opinion. Eric says, I admit it, I gaslighted myself into thinking Liv would return. Yeah, we all knew that, mate. Rickan says, do you think we get Dom versus AJ in Paris or Finn? I would like to see Finn more involved in the story now, I'll say that. Tony says, Chelsea Green was interested in becoming the Lily doll character. Yeah, she pitched it. Nobody took it up. Nobody. Hector says, Vince for years would use the break in case of emergency Lesnar card. When Triple H took over, I thought it would change. I guess the Daniel Cormier report looks bad in context. Could this hurt sponsors? Yes. WWE believe it will not hurt sponsors, and Nick Khan is already in damage control mode. But at the moment, nothing has really happened with it. Skim says, don't forget, Slim Jims were the ones who got Vince to leave. It'd be interesting to see how sponsors see it today. I mean, Slim Jims were all over those tables. Mr. X says, any chance Bayley wins the IC title? More on that shortly. Declan, no, just lemonade. Diet lemonade, to be honest. Gotta look after my teeth. Where was I? I've lost track of it slightly. There we are. Bismo said, I had a strange feeling Brock was going to appear at the end of the match, and I also didn't think Cody would win. Perry says, do we think Brock Lesnar is a punishment to John Cena by The Rock for turning his back on the dark side? I hope to God The Rock is not involved, but more on that shortly. Christopher Leclerc wishes a happy 27th birthday to Blake Monroe. Ashley says, Tom, do you think Brock's return will affect ratings in a negative way? No, they're not reporting ratings, so nothing is really affecting them per se. I think people who watch wrestling by and large, with some exceptions, and I think this chat is majority exceptions, will like this. Man got cheered. Yeah. Joey will be discussing Jade shortly. Declan would like Becky versus Tiffany at Clash of Paris. That is unlikely to happen given the championship situation. Cal says the TLC match was amazing. So glad the Wyatt Six won. They were genuinely amazing. Sean says, what do you think of SummerSlam? Was it better than WrestleMania? I think recency bias has caught a lot of people. And because it's been more recent, they've decided it's incredible. I think there was good stuff, and I think there was awkward stuff. I don't think there was any bad stuff, but there was not good stuff. Again, do apologise. Aaron is asking any plans for LA Knight. More on that very shortly. Bailey says, any update on Dakota Kai? Now that her non-compete has ended, she has a number of offers on the table and she's taking her time picking one. Noob says, hello, Mr. Colohue. Last night was the wildest weekend I've ever seen. One night is indeed a wild weekend. Double the fun. Declan says, according to Body Slam, Becky's next opponent is Nikki Bella. Cal says, WWE failed women once again. Eric says, good morning, Tom. How are you doing? What are the future plans for the Kabuki Warriors? They're going to be in the women's tag division for quite a while. And that's pretty much it. Nothing really beyond that. Others says the crowd is turning on Cody slowly. Him beating Cena didn't really help matters. More on that shortly. Appreciate that, Declan. Trekker PD says, Carl, I wouldn't worry. Stephanie Vaquer is going to dethrone Naomi in Paris. Christopher Harris says, is it true that Alexa is bringing back the supernatural elements of her character? No. More on that shortly. Bismo says it's hilarious how people attack Tom like he works for WWE, that everything is 100%. Plans change, stupid to attack him. There are plenty of stupid people in the world. That said, plenty of people have turned up to find out the news, and I appreciate all of you for coming in and checking it out. I always like it when you come. Valencia says, hi Tom, hope you're feeling a wee bit better. Teensy. Aaron says, I honestly may swap to primarily watching AEW and very little WWE. This feels just disrespectful to a good amount of the fan base. Noob says, what's next for Rhea Ripley and Io Sky following SummerSlam? I would hope a change of scenery. I think a lot of people on the Raw side really desperately need it. I mean, it's lemonade, Shane. It's just lemonade. There ain't nothing fancy there. Mr. X says, will CM Punk win his title back? Are you asking for like the next 2 minutes, or are you asking before he dies? Skim says, I would hazard a guess 95% of the WWE audience don't actually know why Brock was off TV initially. And that is why wrestling media is a failure. It is the job of media to inform. If you can't reach 95% of the audience, you've failed. Literally, your entire purpose. Your entire purpose is not supposed to be self-celebration. It's not supposed to be profit. It's supposed to be informing people on things that they need to be informed about. It has failed. Rickan says Vince will most likely be seen as Hall of Fame speech, if not for sure backstage. That is fair, and that is true. Blue says, hey Tom, I feel like the WWE is actively trying to turn off a lot of their fan base. Interesting choice of words there, mate. Trekker PD says, my friends and I were doing SummerSlam predictions Friday. I asked if they heard rumours about Brock returning. They said no, and when he showed up, they were like, Trek called it. Rumours have been out there for a while. Cal says, shout out to Tiffany Stratton, by the way, 14-0 this year. Declan says, I hope everyone had a great weekend. And Trekkerpedia says, I was just like, there were rumours we heard at work, so I asked if they heard anything. Jordan says, good evening, Tom and chat. Welcome, Jordan. And Ray says, what was the best night of SummerSlam? Mine was night 2. I agree with that. Drive-by says, Cena's not the good guy he makes himself out to be. Disgusted that Brock is back and will not be watching WWE anymore. Rocky says, future match, babyface Charlotte Flair, heel Alexa Bliss. What is your thoughts? I think plenty of people complain when tag teams pair up only to immediately break up, and those same people are desperate for a breakup of a tag team. The other Mike says, who do you think would be the first challenger for Cody? I'm thinking Drew, maybe. Drew, I think, would be a good shout. They've been trying to make that feud happen for a while. Joey said, are they planning to continue the Jacob Fatu and Solo feud? Feels like it's getting really stale now. We have a bit of news on that as well. Ooh, where were we? Declan says, how long with the Nikki and Becky feud? I want Becky to go for the world title instead of the mid-card titles. That's not her intention at this point, as I said. You raise a fair point, KJ. You raise a fair point. I do leave room for information to be updated, and when it comes to things being wrong, I call them out when they're wrong, but when they update their information and when they're transparent about it, I give them credit for that. But I get what you're saying, and I think it's a fair point to make. Sean says, fans were chanting, we want Cross on the post, Joe, and Triple H says, you want Brock, you got Brock. Yeah, the man knows how to kayfabe. Ray says, I think storyline The Rock will return and say he brought Brock Lesnar to attack John Cena. I find that unlikely. And Marcel says, who's next for Cody? There's a multitude of challengers, and I'll be interested to see who they go with. Joey says, Cena's heel run was super bizarre. Felt like it was The Rock's idea and not Cena's. Correct. Hector says, I know it would never happen, but I would love to see Nick Khan give an honest answer to the cost-benefit analysis for bringing Lesnar back. I feel like as long as they make money, that's what matters. Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head perfectly there. Drekipedia says, everyone hit the like button, share and subscribe. Let's get Tom to 60 likes, please. And if you can, please do consider doing so. We have 106 people here watching live. Only 52 thumbs ups. Let's keep that going. Jordan says, Tom, did you see the clip on the after show of Triple H ignoring the we want cross chance by saying you wanted Brock, you got him? I didn't, but it has just been mentioned. Declan says, I feel sorry for Becky that she didn't main event SummerSlam at the same arena where she main evented WrestleMania. You would feel sorry for Becky that she did not win the World Heavyweight Championship and indeed every single championship in every single match of the night. Michael says, Asuka and Kairi's ceiling is now the tag division. Pretty much, at least for now. WWE are concerned with their injury history that they're not really going to be able to carry anything on their back. Hector says, on the SummerSlam post-show, you could hear the crowd chanting Homelander when they were talking to Cody and he just smirked. If they're going to boo and whatnot, he might as well lean into it. He did not just smirk. He directly responded to it. Declan says, WWE need a draft. Welcome, Tricky Detective. Bailey says, most wrestling fans are not reading dirt sheets to begin with, and that's the thing. Wrestling media needs to not be dirt sheets, and so far, they ain't succeeded. The other Mike says the whole thank God for AEW shit is meaningless when you remember they get their fair share of weirdos too. Everyone does indeed. Rick says, I hope Cena doesn't choose The Rock as his final opponent, seeing how no one predicted him to pick Brock. Sean says, would fans boo Alexa over Charlotte is the question. They're not going to need to. Thank you, Trekipedia. Fiend says, since SummerSlam is in Minneapolis next year, do you think Brock will wrap up his career next year? I did mention that at the beginning, and yes, I believe so. Oh, Renee says, female fan here, through the roof excited about Brock's return, jumped off my chair. Tricky was disappointed in the AJ Styles loss. Fourth troll, guys. Fourth troll. That's where we are now. We knew there was going to be trolls today. Sean says, do you think Becky will turn face after her reign is over? Also not a fan of Becky's new theme. After her reign is over could be any time until the day she dies, so it's a bit of a loaded question. Declan quite likes it. I did not. Drive-by says, baffling that any woman could support Brock and Vince. People do, and they're entitled to that opinion. Tricky says, I know it won't happen, but I'd love MFT against OG Bloodline. MFT? Oh, motherfucking... Everyone remember the hi troll and bye troll. Hello, Bob John, good to see you. ABC has Clash in Paris tickets. Asks, will they be getting Brock versus Cena? I suspect that is indeed the match that is planned. Mr. X says, is WrestleVotes and a WWE employee? His know-how return and wins? I don't entirely understand what you've asked me there, Mr. X. Can you rephrase? Pretty much, Michael, yeah. Yeah, the people who think trolls are a bad thing are just a little confused. They're very good for the chat rate. They're very good to show that your show is going as far as it can. And it's always after PLEs that people drop in on a mission to go on the attack. It's honestly just funny. It doesn't matter how big you are, you're always going to get trolls. It means you've got somewhere. Proud Dad says, I'm okay with Brock's return. No proof of wrongdoing. Controversy creates cash. Technically, all three of those are accurate statements. Fiend, they've not even confirmed the match yet, mate. Trekipedia says, I deal with trolls at work too. I just smile and say, well, thanks for coming. KJ says, disagree with claims the fans are turning on Cody. He's only booed against Cena. Cena is in his retirement year, and every time Cena faces Cody, it's for a title. It's a bad situation for Cody to be in, which is a fair comment, I reckon. Hector says, it's a crazy world we live in where Brock Lesnar is trying to be the voice of reason by saying he should stay away, yet WWE can't stay away. It's like being in a toxic relationship. He was saying that over time, however, conversation with Vince, conversation with Cena, he did change his mind. Sean says, do you think we get Brock versus Seth or Brock versus Roman during this year he's back? I found that unlikely. There is a pretty clear divide between Raw and SmackDown, but of course, I am expecting a draft soon. C-Mac says, Jimmy and Jey Uso still getting back together? Was kind of looking for Jey to come out and help Jimmy last night. At the moment, they are still trying to push them separately, but they're not separately. They're in tag teams. Rick says, Cena is wrestling wrestlers from his last feuds so far. Kind of wish Edge was still in WWE. Declan says, get well, Tom. Stay hydrated. Appreciate you. And Fiend says, lots of lawyers in the IWC think they know anything about how the context of Brock's mentioned in the suit. And also says, I'd rather Brock have fresh matches. The Gunter one has definitely been mentioned a lot. Michael says, I didn't think Brock would come back without Vince, but I guess money talks. In his own way, Vince is ensuring that Brock has come back because there has been lots of conversations and that name is going to come up a little later. Autumn says, I'd love to see Brock versus Roman one more time. Next up then. Cena's pivot to face was done with the intention of Brock Lesnar returning at SummerSlam. It did harm Cody, but there was a long-term plan for that. Cena pivoted very late in the day due to final confirmation of Brock Lesnar's return quite late in the day as well. I am being told that Triple H is working right now to erase the influence of The Rock slowly from everything involving the John Cena and Cody Rhodes feud. Travis Scott has been told in no uncertain terms that they're not interested in working with him anymore, and the return of Brock essentially is an opportunity to sweep The Rock under the carpet, pretend it never happened, and work with face Cena as he gets to that side of his list of people to work with. I would also like to point out an unfortunate problem here. I do now find it unlikely that John Cena will face off against Joe Hendry. Mr. X again, forever's a long time. Bob John says, what a mess the heel turn was. Shouldn't have done it. All a mess. Trekipedia says, Gunter having surgery and that's why they did the part in the match with the blood. The report from Wrestling Observer is that he's having surgery on his nose. The blood was on his forehead, so I would say it's unrelated. Ricky says, hey Tom Buddy, how bad is Bron Breakker's injury? Hasn't been assessed yet to my knowledge, but I would say it's interesting that he has apparently the same injury that Seth had, but he didn't. Fiend says, as long as Vince doesn't start trying to meddle with WWE and doesn't try and force his way back into the company itself, he never stopped. And Michael says that Cena heel turn turned out to be a disaster. Trekipedia is just happy we don't have to hear Travis Scott's music anymore. Literally, as I explained the situation with Triple H potentially sweeping The Rock under the rug, I have to undermine the point. A Cody heel turn is on the table where it wasn't before. Cody was trying to tempt fans to play up the Homelander concept. Cody, to my knowledge, has always wanted to stay face. But there's a little birdie in his ear who has spent the last year or so telling him how great a story they could tell with a heel Cody run. That little voice in his ear is named The Rock. Cody and The Rock have apparently been getting closer, sharing concepts and creativity, and talking about working together more in the years to come. Yeah, The Rock moves pretty quickly. I think you all get what I'm saying. Hector says, a couple of months ago there were pictures of Lesnar that surfaced of him training. A lot of the chatter was he might be training for a return, but I didn't think it would actually happen. But here we are. At that point, he was indeed just training for the sake of training. He likes it. As Sean, that is indeed what I've just said. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker's match against Roman Reigns and Jey Uso was always planned to result in a win for Roman and Jey. However, it was advertised backstage as an intended win for Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, which makes it interesting. I believe there's been reports out there already about it, but it looked like a last-minute change because because they were trying to protect themselves from giving away the game about Seth Rollins. The intention was that Seth would be able to restore the heat of his faction with his cash-in, so the win was not necessary, and in fact would be largely forgotten pretty much instantly. Seth was apparently fine the whole time. It was entirely fake an injury. The week after it happened, I was told that it was an injury, a genuine injury. I mentioned that at the time. In the days that followed, I became less and less confident, but not sure enough to say otherwise, which is why I made it clear to everyone that while I had reported what I had, the situation had changed and I was waiting for SummerSlam before I could say with any real confidence. Of course, it was at the beginning of the show, right after that first match, that I mentioned that I'd kind of changed my mind based on what I was seeing, and I did now expect Seth to cash in. Triple H is trialling new methods of storytelling similar to the Kevin Owens heel turn, which involve fans being there to make recordings. It also means that they've got an opportunity to make sure LA Knight maintains a push, because there is a very easy championship match right there and waiting for LA Knight once Punk has had his own revenge. WWE Raw will still be the Seth Rollins show, and in fact, despite the supposed and quote-unquote injury, it always has been the Seth Rollins show. Also want to share that the WWE at the moment are very happy with the reception for Charlotte Flair. I can also confirm, and some of you are going to be quite upset about this, there are no plans at current for Alexa Bliss to work with the Wyatt Six. The character that she used to play, the dark and moody, is no longer believed to really fit the aesthetic that they are going for. After all, as spooky as some of the masks and characters are, they are living, breathing, slightly insane individuals as a story now, rather than the spooky and scary, the good old-fashioned kooky. The Addams Family. So the possibility of working with Alexa Bliss at the moment seems like they've moved on. Andrew says, hi Tom, legend. Thank you, Andrew, appreciate you. Michael Carpenter says, where are you getting this from? A number of different sources within WWE that I speak to. I'm certainly not the most connected man in the world, but I share what I know, and my record is available in full. Some of it on TikTok, most of it on YouTube. You can check every spoiler warning that I've ever hosted. We go live on Mondays and Fridays, and you can check every report that I've ever made. I'm feeling a fair bit better, KJ. I'm still not 100%, but I'm definitely feeling better. Thank you, Ricky. Fiend says, a question, would TKO even bring Vince back? Surely they know he's bad for business. Essentially, that's why Vince left. It wasn't because of any accusations or allegations against him. It was because he was becoming toxic to the business and taking attention away from what they believed was the good work that they were doing. Oh, KJ, I didn't know that. Did you have fun, man? Michael says, does Cena now get the Hogan label that the women get since he gets to pick his opponents? I mean, he's been Superman for a very long time. The Cena Hogan thing, that's been basically his entire career, surely. Viva Mike says, what does Triple H think of a Cody heel run? Is he against it? Not necessarily. He's looking to see what's best for business. Entertainment says, I thought Cena's heel run was alright. We got Cena versus Punk and Cena versus Randy feuds, which I thought were fun. Bam Bam says, any news about NXT Europe since there were some wrestlers from Europe in that SummerSlam tryout? To my knowledge, at the moment there is no NXT Europe, and while they do have a number of people on contracts that haven't yet started, nothing has been made official or formally announced yet. Sean says, what do you think is next for Julia? Hopefully some new challenges, because they desperately need to give them. Bismo says, do you think there's a potential Gunter face turn if the plan is for him to face Brock in future? It's an interesting one because Gunter has never really been heel. He's had moments, but he's much more of a tweener. He matches whoever he's wrestling. I would say he was heel working with Jey Uso, but I wouldn't necessarily say he played up heel too much against Punk. Bean says, Braun Strowman just commented on the cross situation. Interesting, I'll have to check that out. Thank you for letting me know. The other Mike says, are tag teams more willing to work with the Wyatt Six due to no more supernatural stuff? Yes. It's had a direct impact on the willingness of people to work with them. Drive-by says, now that Seth is back and Roman is backstage, do you expect them to have any interaction tonight? Not necessarily, but I do think it would be a good shout. It's just that Seth is very busy with a lot of other people. Joey says, what is the long-term plan for the Wyatt Six of the tag titles? At the moment, they're not really booking things long-term. They're taking their time with it. Jack says, but that's exactly the same reason Brock was taken off TV, so what's the difference between Vince and Brock if both were taken off TV for the same reason. First and foremost, the level of accusations was very different. Secondly, as I've mentioned, the call to take Vince McMahon out of TKO and off TV was financially driven rather than based on anything else. And as regards Brock, it was a mutual decision and an understood conversation. And yes, as KJ rightly points out, technically, no accusation has been levied against Brock Lesnar. KJ says, heel Cody versus Punk next year at Mania would be massive. I'm just Ken's aside, Tom. SummerSlam was actually insane. Brock aside, I had a lot of fun with it. I feel like a kid again seeing Super Cena being Super Cena. Him kicking out of a Crossroads Cubed was a highlight for me. Rickon says, I don't know if you watched the post-show, but Angelo Dawkins and Montez teased a breakup. They've had moments of that, and it does not make me feel happy. Hector says, the worst part of Lesnar coming back last night, for me at least, was instead of focusing on one of the best Cena matches we've got in decades, it was overshadowed by Brock. I just didn't see the point. Juan, no worries, mate. Appreciate it. Says, hey, Tom, I've been lurking, but I'm listening. I appreciate you. Bob John says, do you now see Braun and Bronson winning the tag belts? Not necessarily, but I definitely think they should be entering that field. Michael is saying, what's next for Cody? There's a number of potential challenges. I have just been reporting on the possibility of a heel turn. Andrew says, did you watch Unreal on Netflix? I liked it. I've not had a chance to sit down and watch it all yet, but I've watched quite a bit of it in clips. Aaron says, why did WWE promote Cross's book? Because, I mean, as long as he's under contract, they technically get a cut if it's run through WWE. Controversy creates cash, as we know. Oh, and that one, Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross and the WWE still have some time to reach an agreement, but the WWE have not changed their initial offer at any point. There is a deal on the table that WWE are happy with, but Kross is not. They do not believe that Kross will take it. They also do not believe him to be worth any more. So the most likely scenario for me would be Karrion Kross working in TNA. That's where the most interest seems to be in his services going forwards. I've also been trying to dig for news on Jade Cargill, but I haven't heard anything so far. The result of the match against Tiffany Stratton, a clean, conclusive loss, makes me think she's pissed off somebody. Honestly, makes me think she's pissed off somebody. But that's just my opinion, and I cannot confirm that. I am trying. I am trying to find out. If I find anything out, I will let you know. But at this point in time, there is nothing out there that I can share. What I can say is that the WWE are happy enough with Jelly Roll's work and reception in the match alongside Randy Orton against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. The wrestlers themselves were impressed, which I think is the main thing. Jelly Roll himself is said to have had fun, but come away with more bruises than he expected. There was a couple of things which you might say were botched, or at least he wasn't quite as prepared for as he expected. Going over a table was definitely one of them. Michael's saying, where are you from? I'm from the UK, which does create some difficulty in communicating with people in WWE at times, but I take it in my stride. Aaron says, I think Jade Cargill needs a lot of help in her matches. This is something that's been mentioned a few times, yeah, and something I've mentioned before. Oh. Paul says, Kyle Fletcher versus Dustin Rhodes Chicago Street Fight was a better match than any match at SummerSlam. I disagree entirely on that one. Sean says, that's what I like about you, Tom. You put the news out there, don't hide it behind a paywall or make people pay for your news. Much respect. Yeah, I take great pride in the fact that I believe in public interest. I'm not here to make a massive profit. I'm not here to drain your bank account. The fact that you guys are here means that at some point you've seen an ad, and that's helped. That's guaranteed a little income for me. But that's all I want there. Now, if you'd like to donate, that's an option available to you. You can donate and help support the channel using the features on YouTube. You can give gifts and use those features on TikTok as well. There are plenty of options available to you, but I'm never going to tell anyone you have to donate. I'm never going to tell anyone if you do this, you'll get this. We do have channel membership options, but what you get is not massive exclusives. It's more in-depth stuff. It's insane stuff. It's just, I hope, fun behind-the-scenes stuff. Michael says, Meltzer speculated much the same about Jade. Sean says, do you see Bianca dethroning Tiffany or Rhea or Io moving over and defeating Tiffany? I would love the idea of a Rhea Ripley-Tiffany Stratton feud. I think there's a lot of good that can come from that. Aaron says, what's the long-term plan with the Bloodsport connection to continue loaning wrestlers out? The WWE, and many of you will get this and many of you will not, the WWE's intention at the moment is to become Chelsea Football Club. They're going to basically own everyone's contract, and every company will be stocked with loans from them. Ken says, is it just a name change he wants that puts them at an immovable object versus irresistible force roadblock, or is it Cross wanting more money that WWE is unwilling to give? It is a combination of many factors, some of which you've mentioned there, but there's also the third factor which always goes into contract negotiations. He wants a push. He wants to be treated like a big deal, and WWE aren't willing to make any promises. Joey says, do you think WWE is not happy with Jade's in-ring progress? I remember you said before there were concerns about it. Yeah, and there still are. Those haven't gone away, so it's a fair shout. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Eric said, Jade Cargill losing to Tiffany Stratton means that Asuka lost for nothing. The WWE's fumbled Asuka's return. Once again, at the moment, the WWE are not confident that Asuka will not be picking up future injuries, so they're trying to protect her by keeping her out of the spotlight. Bean says, Braun certainly burned that bridge. Yeah, it's what he does. Rickan says, Jade versus Bianca must be coming soon. If not, what's next for Jade? Again, I'm trying to find out, and I'm having difficulty. Fiend says, Jade's heel turn is what I'm leaning towards. That was the initial plan when they were building towards WrestleMania, but it would be against Bianca rather than Naomi. The other Mike says, Jade has gotten better every match. That's all we can ask for. I think she'll be all right. I have her winning the Rumble. John says, the difference I feel is, Tom, this is almost like you sharing news with friends instead, whereas others are in the game for themselves and their pockets. Well, that's what I'm trying. I started this show not to make a living. I started this show because I used to watch the Royal Rumble with friends. And then the lockdown happened, and I couldn't have friends over to watch it. So I hosted a Royal Rumble watch party, and I think we peaked at 5 people. Look at me now. Aaron says, any plans for faction members for Fatu? I am getting on to that, I promise. There's just a lot to cover today. Sid says, WWE's realised that Jade Cargill can't wrestle. Ken says, I don't think it's that she can't wrestle, but it's a lot like that initial Ryback push. They moved her to the main event scene way too soon. She should have worked NXT for 6 to 9 months. She was not willing to sign a contract with the WWE that involved NXT. Hector says, on a Raj Giri X post where he tried defending WWE by going to the well of Lesnar didn't technically do anything legally wrong, Kylie Ray rightfully responded with legality does not equal morality, which is true and very much worth mentioning. Both parts are worth mentioning. You keep saying it, Declan, but you've repeated it ad nauseum and I haven't read it. You know I'm not going to. I know your view. We all know your view. We've all known your view for a very long time. It's cool. KJ says, how do you feel about the TLC match? Absolutely madness, and yes, I had fun, but I was on the floor and people kept standing in their seats. It was hard to see in the ring. I've been there, mate. I've absolutely been there. There was a match between, I think it was Dave Mastiff and Joe Coffey in NXT UK Cardiff. Couldn't see a goddamn thing. Marcel, we'll probably talk about Royal Rumble predictions at some future point. There's a lot of news to cover at the moment. Yeah, fair play, Aaron. Fair play. Entertainment says I don't have any issue with Jade's in-ring abilities. As long as she looks like a dominant force and looks good with 4 to 5 moves, I'm good. To be fair, overall she still looked good in the match at times. Rickan says, I like that Tom, if he reports something wrong, which he never really does, he takes responsibility for it. Others never take blame. Yeah, and I also give credit to people who do call me out on things. Like, I'm laughing at trolls, but that's because I don't value the opinions of strangers. If you guys say to me, hey, maybe you're looking at this wrong, I will at least take that under advisement and think about it. Like, this is not my channel. This is all of our channel. Everyone here right now is helping this channel. The content that I create is based on the questions you ask and what you want to know. This is not one-sided. We're a team. Sean says, if Jon Moxley was in WWE, is he someone John Cena would have asked to work with? I don't know. I've not personally seen the list and I don't believe his name was on it. Declan says there was a legit fight at SummerSlam between 2 fans. A guy was escorted out by security because he was close to Triple H. Nice. I swear I saw Enzo Amore. Bismo says, what I love about Tom's channel is his format is simple and very informative. That's all you need. You don't need all the bells and whistles like some creators who shall not be mentioned. Yeah, there's no need to cover anything like that. I do what I can. I ain't fancy. And that's all. Thomas, welcome. Says, hi Tom, have you talked about Brock yet? Yes. It was about 50 minutes ago. You can always rewind the YouTube video. Yes, Josh, Monday Night Raw is indeed on tonight. Tonight is Monday. I appreciate that, Rickon. Got into a bit of a love fest, and I like it. KJ says, did you see how Jelly Roll protected himself before Logan landed on him? Yeah, and it wasn't good. It will have hurt Logan. You're putting your genitals at more risk. Ashley said that they're talent that are angry about Brock's return. I've not got much information about that yet from a talent perspective. I would expect people to be wound up. Fiend says, what do you think happens next with Gunter? He is pushing for a match against Brock. KJ says, sorry, but Jade should have went to NXT. There's women in NXT with way less experience than her, but is way better. Joey says, what matches do you see happening in Paris? We will be covering that soon. For example, I can see a Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria. I can see Brock versus Cena. We're going to need a probably Seth versus LA Knight match I'd go for, etc. Fiend says, do you think CM Punk is angry at Brock's return? No, he's very much a company guy now. And KJ says, I'd like a heel Bianca to beat Tiffany. Aaron says, do you feel like Jey Uso is basically being used as Daniel Bryan to push him and get merchant sales up? Yeah. And he's very happy about it. Thomas says, I personally feel like TKO wouldn't risk losing ad revenue with Brock returning. And yet I feel they have done. We'll see how it plays out. Right. Gunter versus CM Punk was quite possibly the match of the year. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, at least so far. But it really needed to rescue night one of SummerSlam. This is a bit of an overarching review of how they laid it out, because there were some strange choices when it came to the match placement, where all of the tag matches were on night one. So we had 3 tag team matches and just basically repeated the same repetitive build to a hot tag, build to a hot tag, build to a hot tag. Then on night 2, we basically had non-stop stipulations, and it got incredibly repetitive. We even had a match where someone had their wrists tied, followed by a match where someone had their wrists tied. Also, I will say, and I very much stand by this, I do think this is quite possibly the most tables that have ever been broken in a single PLE. It was a lot of tables. So many tables. If you're a table in the WWE, you are not safe. Naomi has been moved even more firmly away from Jade Cargill now that essentially Jade Cargill seems to be on the way down. A large part of this is that the WWE are more confident in Naomi now than they've been for a long time. In fact, they were very happy after she returned from TNA, and they could see that she'd really developed a newfound intensity with her act. WWE are confident that this is a push that will take Naomi to the next level, and are actually feeling very secure with her as champion at the moment. In fact, it was believed that the feud with Jade Cargill kind of got in the way of that, and there were simply better options out there. So Naomi is now firmly on the other side of that. Bob John says, I think Brock returning is so WWE can get over against Forbidden Door with Clash in Paris. No, they're pretty confident being able to do that anyway. Head of the Table says, is Karrion Kross staying in WWE? An offer is on the table. Thank you for following Head of the Table. Appreciate you. An offer is on the table. And as I did mention earlier, it is the situation whereby the offer's been on the table the entire time. The WWE aren't willing to offer anything greater. They're simply unwilling to offer anything beyond that. And Karrion Kross isn't happy with it because of, 1, the money, 2, his name maintaining as Karrion Kross when he wants to go back to Killer Kross, and the push. He is of the opinion that he should be getting pushed harder. WWE are of the opinion that he's being pushed hard enough. Thank you. Thank you, JC Graham, for following as well. Quite a few new follows on TikTok. Some of the work during SummerSlam has gained us a lot of additional viewers. The SmackDown Tag Team Division had another point to prove during another TLC match, and proved it once again. They have made it clear to Triple H, to everyone in WWE, that they should never have been left off the WrestleMania card. The tempo was incredible, and I think the right team won, even though it was tremendously overbooked. We did expect that. It was great fun, and the Wyatt Six have been receiving huge compliments backstage. This is being considered as real reinforcement and positive reinforcement of the fact that WWE said to the Wyatt Six, we need to make some changes to your presentation. The Wyatt Six said no, eventually came back to the table, and the WWE feel that they have been proven right with the changes in presentation that have been implemented. The Raw Tag Team Division is getting increasingly jealous of everything going on the SmackDown side, but hey, you got WrestleMania. You got WrestleMania after all. Juan says, Jade Cargill recently mentioned she wasn't going to be a legend in AEW, so she left for WWE for that reason. As of now, she ain't going to be a legend in WWE either, so not smart of her to say that. Yeah, she hasn't got the greatest filter. Sean says, well, the same with Ronda and AJ Styles, Tom. They wouldn't sign if they had to go through NXT. That is correct. And also, interestingly, Dominic Mysterio. But it wasn't Dominic Mysterio who didn't want to go through NXT. It was Rey Mysterio who signed on and took a considerable pay cut from his time in New Japan in order to ensure that Dominic got a good push, a consistent character, and a good future. Entertainment dreams for a heel Bianca. Ray says, I hope WWE use Joe Tessitore as a commentator in PLEs in future. Thank you, Declan. Appreciate you. Joey says, does WWE intentionally book Night One bad? No, I don't necessarily think it was just the booking. There was also some problems with the execution, as we know. And for example, Cross and Zayn, nobody really seemed to have the heart in that. Sean says, only 4 title changes in a 2-night show. Not really a good thing. Hector says, with Tiffany winning clean over Jade, I get the feeling they're very high on her. She never takes losses and is improved over time. Do you see her carrying the title to Mania or no? I didn't expect her to carry the title after SummerSlam, to be honest. I genuinely didn't. Aaron says, has LA Knight already hit his potential? I would say so, but that doesn't mean he can't still advance in this company. I just think he's quite experienced now. There's not much further he can go. Ken says, those tables really snapped into a Slim Jim. Declan says, RIP. Entertainment says, Naomi may be my favourite wrestler now with Bianca and Seth, so your third favourite wrestler. The other Mike says, is it Bash Jade Cargill Day? People are entitled to their opinion, Mike, and certainly you are entitled to yours if you want to disagree. What we do here is share those opinions and we talk about it. We're confused, I think. I'm certainly confused. Declan says, not all WWE wrestlers get pushed, they'll build a bridge. Fair. Rickon says, WWE needs a draft. A Raw Tag Team Division needs a revamp. Fiend says, no more supernatural BS. Ken says, hey Tom, do you know who produced a match between Cody and Cena? I don't. That's not information I typically get, but I know it's going to become readily available relatively soon. Jess, welcome. Says, haven't been here for a while. Scrolling all the way back to the beginning. Have a good one, Tom. Thank you, Jess, and you. KJ says, there was a fight in the arena too during the Solo and Jacob entrance, but I wouldn't even consider it a fight. People seem angry nowadays. People seem angry. You know the deal. Says, great work, Tom. Always appreciate knowing that you strive for delivering factual news over clickbait rumours. Hit that like and subscribe, everyone. Thank you. You know the deal. If it is your first time here or you've never hit subscribe, now is a good time to do so. We're very close to 10,000 subscribers, and I'd absolutely love to hit that, but it is just a case of ensuring that people find what we're doing here. JC, there was a Wired 6 update a little earlier. I've just covered some of it, and there was also discussions on Alexa Bliss shortly before. Do apologise. Dylan says, what changed your opinion on Brock? Because as far as I'm aware, he's not guilty of anything. Brock has not been accused of anything. Legally. His name has been mentioned with something that he may well be guilty of. However, there's been no accusation. Now, my opinion on Brock is not necessarily positive, but there's a number of reasons for that. Sean says, next thing we know, fans are going to pull out lightsabers at shows and fight each other with them. If you have a championship belt at a wrestling show, it is your responsibility to actively defend it. Especially if it's a 24/7. We all know this. We all know this. And we all apparently have forgotten it. Bayley's involvement with Lyra, Valkyria and Becky Lynch is a clear pivot point. Becky at this point is moving on, and the intention was for her to move on quite a lot sooner from Lyra to Bayley, and instead Bayley stepped aside from a feud with Becky to ensure that Lyra got greater opportunities. Becky and Bayley have engineered a major push for Lyra that was never intended to last this long, but it had to end at some point. Becky has done her part and will now move on, but Bayley seems insistent that it's her turn to help next, so Lyra versus Bayley is still on the agenda. Sorry guys, I'm struggling to get everything out. After this, it'll be a while before spoiler warning on Friday, so hopefully I have a chance to rest up. I'm turning my head in the hope that headphone users are not, RIP. Hopefully you're not. Feel sorry for you if you are. I do apologise. KJ says, a lot of tables being broken. Slim Jim must be happy. Fiend says, Tom is the reigning and defending undisputed soda champion. Cherry Coke. Sid says, I'm thinking about taking a break from WWE, getting bored of WWE and their wrestlers. I'm enjoying AEW more. If you feel like it's a good idea to take a break, if you feel like you're getting bored of a product, there are plenty of other options out there that you might enjoy more, or you might just enjoy more right now. It's worth checking out. Hector says, if Karrion is essentially on his way out, I wonder what Triple H said to him originally to get him to re-sign, because it feels, besides NXT, he's never been taken seriously on the main roster, even after Vince left. KJ says, I thought the Solo versus Jacob match was a big waste of time, and the post-match spot could have happened during the match. They barely even used the cage. That actually takes us very neatly onto the next thing I want to discuss. Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu was cut for time. They lost quite a few minutes because Becky and Lyra went over. At the same time, nothing major was actually planned to happen during the cage match. The storyline between Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa is still ongoing. It's also largely on pause until Tama Tonga is ready to return and perform. So we will see a continuation of this feud. We will see better moments, but with time being cut, essentially what this match came down to was an exercise in time killing. I also speculated during the watch party that Dominic versus AJ was cut for time. I've been assured that this is not the case. Instead, Dominic Mysterio has been dealing with a few minor injuries at once, so he's been protected with a mixture of shorter matches, rarer matches, and multi-person matches. Particularly knowing that he will be working in AAA, they are trying to ensure that he's used sparingly because of, as I said, a number of small injuries which have started to mount up. Dylan said, I personally was not a fan of night 1. I thought night 1 was garbage. Night 2, however, is amazing. I just want to say one thing because this annoys me. I'm not a fan of the way they had Seth's injury happen, because now anytime someone gets legitimately injured, it makes people think, oh, it's fake, it's not actually injured. It now sets a bad example for when people get legit injured. That's intentional. The WWE, with the use of WWE Unreal, with some of the surprises that they've been making happen, particularly with, for example, the return of CM Punk, which we discussed on this channel, they are trying to undermine wrestling media. And relatively successfully. They are trying to catch us out as wrong as many times as possible. With many people, it has worked. A lot of people, because of this, are being incredibly careful. And the reports that they're making don't say anything. For example, hey, something might happen in the main event. That's not even a report. But I guarantee you, the person who reported that is taking a victory lap. Michael says, Meltzer reported Brock was cleared by legal 4 weeks ago. I'm not sure how one can be cleared by legal. As I say, Nick Khan made the choice to bring Brock back based on the list provided to him by Cena. If the idea is that WWE conducted an internal investigation, that might be what they're referring to. Sean says, what has happened to R-Truth? Well, they fired him because they had no plans for him, and when he came back, they still had no plans for him. Fiend is asking, who would I draft to either show and why? I think Rhea Ripley needs a change of scenery. Outside of that, I would love to see what Jacob Fatu can do on Raw against, for example, a Braun Breaker. It is 7 minutes past 11. We've been live for nearly 70 minutes. That is all the news that I have for you. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has joined us today. Hopefully this news has helped you understand what is going on in the wrestling world. We will be live on Friday. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit like if you haven't. I've been Tom Colohue. You have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.